We are all employed, directly or indirectly, by ship owners. If a ship owner's commercial venture does not succeed, then we will all be out of work. In recent years, it has been costing somewhere in the region of $2 billion US, 2,000 million US dollars each year paying claims. With good, contemporaneous evidence, we can deal with those claims, but without that evidence, we are lost. It is very important, therefore, that everyone takes the collection of evidence seriously, and it becomes part of their daily way of life.
Hi there. We run a good ship here and we'll be glad to have you aboard. Unless you like the guy on that ship over there. See nothing, hear nothing, do nothing. I sure wouldn't want him aboard my ship. Just because you're too idle to gather vital evidence could cost a lot of jobs, maybe even yours.
You think I'm kidding? Well, just take a look at this recent survey. It shows that on too many ships, only about a third of the cargo being carried is making a profit. The loot from the other two-thirds is paying out for insurance, mainly because of the incompetence of idiots like this.
Watch out, me hearties! Dive,
Oh, there's trouble on the starboard bow! Can the ship cause it's coming straight for us? Oh, do something! Oh, warn the bridge, quick! Oh, watch out, watch out! Oh!
I don't want you to sink without trace. I want you to listen and learn from some guys who've been around a long time and sure as hell know what it's all about.
I can't stress enough the use a camera to collect evidence when you have an accident or an incident on board the ship. For example, a few years ago I had a man who committed suicide, and when we found him he was hanging, and for some unknown reason I decided to take the camera and photograph it. When we got him down into the hospital, we tried to recover him, but he was dead. We stripped him down and I again took photographs of the body, the neck, the hands, and anything else I thought, and just left it. Well, we got to the next port and the consular came on board and everything was all right. And I understood that things were fine, but 2 weeks later we found out the family had said no. This man didn't commit suicide, he was just attacked. Did I have any evidence? Well, I had. I got the film developed and that was sent to the courts, and the courts accepted that as evidence, and the family unfortunately had to believe he did commit suicide.
I can't stress enough how important it is to have this kind of documentation on board, written or photographic evidence. You never know. You have to think ahead. Maybe sometime in the future something might happen out of the blue. It would be important to have this evidence and save you a lot of money.
I've got the Polaroids of the cargo incident which has just occurred on the link span.
My God, that's pretty serious, isn't it? Could have been serious anyway.
The driver's out of the cab now.
And he was okay, was he?
He was a bit shaken, yes, but they've taken him round to see the nurse.
Yeah, well, at least that shows that it didn't actually sort of come on board. The accident obviously took place before it actually arrived on board the ship. Well, we've got the photographs. I think what we should do really is get the second mate to furnish me with a statement of facts, basically, as to what he saw.
Right, yeah.
And what he thought happened. Just in case that there's any sort of claim at some stage against the ship at all.
I'll get him to do it straight away while it's fresh in his mind.
Right.
Okay, I'll leave those with you.
Yes, okay.
Right. I've seen the second officer.
Yes.
And he's prepared the statement of facts concerning the incident with the tugmaster on the
Statement
shore.
of facts regarding the incident concerning tugmaster on shore, link span at...
Also, officers, in case something goes wrong, they should go around and check if other crew members have some evidence, either written or some photographic, and try to investigate or find out if such an evidence is available.
An example of the usefulness of this occurred recently when a crew member fell on the main deck and claimed he'd been unconscious for some time after the fall. In reality, the accident was observed on the CCTV camera and also by 2 contractors who were working in the vicinity.
Keith, I wonder if you mind helping me with providing a voluntary statement to witness the accident you saw yesterday afternoon on deck.
Yes.
You remember one of the crew members fell down?
I do indeed, yeah.
Yeah, if you could just tell me in your own words what occurred.
Okay, as I saw it, I was up a ladder at the time, working up on the overheads, and when I glanced down, I saw the guy had fallen down on the deck. By the time I got to the bottom of the ladder, he'd arisen and rubbed himself down, and he seemed to be okay.
So he obviously he hadn't been lying down on the deck for any length of time?
Not more than a few seconds.
Right, fine. I'll just put this into a statement, and then if I could ask you to sign to agree that was exactly what happened.
Fine, yes.
Right, okay then.
Come in.
Right.
Oh, hello, John. Have a seat.
I think you wanted to see me.
Yes, I did, yeah. How are you feeling?
Oh, not so bad.
Right, it's with reference to the accident you had yesterday, which I've asked you to come and see me.
Yeah.
I'm required to fill in an accident report form just to state the facts as they happened. How did you hurt yourself? What did you...
I hit my head and...
You hit your head?
Elbow. I think I was out for about 10 minutes, quarter of an hour, so I must have been out for a while anyway.
Right.
I felt pretty rough after I hit my head.
Right, okay. And do you notice anybody witnessed the accident?
No, I didn't. I don't think there's anybody. I didn't see anybody.
Right.
I don't remember seeing anybody around. I think I was the only one.
It's just later in the day, one of the contractors who was working on the main deck came to see me and mentioned that he saw you have a fall.
If there's something I didn't see, I don't remember anybody being there.
A combination of the CCTV evidence, the witness's statement, and the entry made in my diary meant that the claim made by the crew member several months later was invalidated. Chief Officer? Yes, Captain. Yes, I'm coming right up, Captain. Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't realise the time. Yes, I'm on my way.
Hi, Chief. I thought I'd better come and see you. I've just had a bit of a fall, so I think I gave myself a bit of a bang, actually.
How do you feel?
All right, I suppose, but I think I went down with a hell of a bang. I was out for a while.
Well, there's no cuts and bruises.
No, I don't.
Where did you say it happened?
Down on the main deck.
On the main deck.
Yeah.
And was anybody there?
No, I was on my own, and there was nobody else around at all.
John, I've got to see the captain urgently now, so if you don't feel well later on, go and see the second mate, and so we'll have to get a move on that. But thanks for letting me know.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Mr. Jameson, what Mr. Bird says is that he slipped, he was on the deck for some time, and received some serious injuries to both his head and his arm. Did you keep a note of any of this?
No, I didn't.
You've stated to my learned friend that you do have a personal notebook.
Yes, I have.
What do you record in that?
I normally just record any unusual occurrence on board the ship.
An accident, would you consider that to be unusual?
Had it been a notifiable accident, yes, I would have made an entry, but as Mr. Bird said he was okay, I didn't bother putting anything in my book.
Would you consider an accident to be an unusual event, or is it something that happens on your ship all the time?
It doesn't happen all the time.
And you didn't record it?
Not in this instance, no.
You've only got a very vague memory of what happened that day, haven't you?
Yes, that's right.
It was dark that morning, wasn't it?
No darker than normal.
How would you know?
I can't say.
You're guessing, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
If you'd made a note of it, perhaps you'd know for certainty.
Yes, I would.
So really, you've got nothing but the vaguest of memories?
That's correct.
Do you have video recording equipment on board your ship?
Yes, we do. We have video cameras situated all around the ship.
Do you have a copy of that video recording?
No, we don't.
So you have no recording of what took place that day when Mr. Bird says he was unconscious for some time?
No, I don't. I was very busy on that occasion, and it must have slipped my mind to look at the videotape. And of course, after 24 hours, it's recorded over the top.
So, Mr. Jameson, you're telling the court that you did not make any records of the events? There is no recording of the accident? Is this true?
That's correct.
Did anyone witness the accident?
Mr. Bird told me there was no witnesses, so I took his word for it.
So you chose not to ask anyone who might have been present?
That's correct.
I've no further questions, my lord.
Seafarers frequently find coming to give evidence in court can be quite a frightening experience. I don't blame them for that. One of the stories I tell to seafarers who have to come and give evidence for me is maybe apocryphal, but it's a good one nevertheless, of a boatswain who was in the witness box, and counsel leaned over to him and said, "Tell me, boatswain, when you saw the bow of the other ship emerge from the fog, were you surprised?" The boatswain said, "Surprised, Your Honour? You could have buggered me through me oilskins." And the judge stroked his chin. The counsel was obviously slightly surprised by this reply, and the judge said, "I think the witness said that he was taken aback."
So don't be the jerk who's made to look small. Do your job well and always walk tall.
Sometimes incidents may occur on ships which you think are only a little out of the ordinary, not much to worry about. Unfortunately, incidents like that have a habit of sometimes rearing their heads at a much later date. Without having collected the evidence, you can find yourself in a very difficult position against very difficult counsel, and you may lose your employer a lot of money.
It is extremely important that when incidents like this occur, you collect as much evidence as you can by way of photographs and other ways of proving how serious or how trivial the incident actually was. If you leave it up to somebody else to bring the claim and you have nothing to put your side of the story with, you will find that the claim you face is many, many times higher than it need have been. So again, a little bit of prevention, a little bit of time taken gathering evidence when the incident happens saves a lot of money in the long run.
Oh, look! There's a crazy guy! And he's not using the safety equipment! He's bound to fall! Oh, no! Hey, mister! Press record! Get it on the ship's video! Wake up! Wake up! Oh, record on video! Whoops! There he goes!
In one particular case, video evidence was the evidence which made all the difference in saving the ship owner a substantial amount of money. The case involved an accident to a subcontractor aboard a ro-ro vessel. The subcontractor had been carrying out maintenance work to the inner ramp door and had fallen from scaffolding when the inner ramp door had unexpectedly moved. When I arrived aboard the vessel, I found scaffolding which was in all respects entirely in accordance with all health and safety requirements. But thanks to the quick thinking of the chief officer aboard the vessel, it was possible to find video evidence which had been taken, indeed without the knowledge of the crew at the time, of the entire sequence of events leading up to the accident, and which showed a totally different situation than that which I observed when I first went aboard the vessel. As you can see from this video, the situation at the time of the accident was somewhat different to that which I found when I went aboard the vessel. The staging that was being used was the sort of staging which you might find around anyone's home, used for general maintenance work. There are no outriggers here. The ladders leading up to the staging are not lashed. There's no safety rail, and the space on the staging is at something of a premium for the large number of people who appear to be involved in at least looking at what the work is that needs to be done, if not actually carrying it out. As regards the numbers who are on there, it's rather difficult to tell from this shot, but as they start to come down, you may be surprised to find that there are, in fact, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 personnel on something which is no more than 4 feet by 8 feet. By now, I was beginning to become more confident that there may be a basis for defending any claim against the ship owners and shifting responsibility to the subcontractors. This was enhanced when we went forward on the video And we found that in view of the lack of height on the staging, we have one of the contractors climbing up the ramp door. Clearly he decided that this was not sufficient for his purposes. You'll see his friend there is also climbing up the ramp door. And they sent for additional technical equipment to put on top of the staging. If I just wind on here, there you have it. In the middle of the staging there, they're placing a T-chest. And this is going to enable them to reach the equipment which they're servicing. When I saw this, I knew that this was just an accident waiting to happen. And inevitably, as we shall see, this is exactly what occurred. This scene is a few seconds before the accident occurred. The work that was being carried out was by way of maintenance to the ram which operated the fixing cleats on the inner ramp door. It was necessary every so often for either the chief engineer or the workmen from the subcontractors to operate the hydraulic controls to see if the maintenance work had been successful. The chief engineer inevitably, on a maintenance day, had a large list of jobs which he had to undertake, and so at some stage or other the subcontractors had operated the controls. On this occasion, however, the chief engineer went around to the side to operate the controls, and you will see him put his head round the side here in a moment to check whether or not anything has happened. As it hadn't, he went back and operated the controls again, and wham. The reason the door opened as it did was because of the maloperation of the hydraulic mechanism by one of the subcontractors at an earlier stage, unknown to the chief engineer. Clearly, however, the former scaffolding which had been erected here gave no margin for unexpected problems arising. It will be apparent to you from the film that the majority of the blame for this accident clearly rested with the employers of the subcontractors. This is something which would not have been apparent but for the quick thinking of the chief officer in identifying the existence of the video and bringing it to my attention. It's for this reason that I would implore you all to ensure that when any accident occurs, you make the fullest possible investigation to ascertain whether there is any photographic or video evidence of the circumstances of the accident. This is evidence which can be of the utmost value to ship owners. In this particular case, the saving for the ship owner in the case amounted to a figure in excess of £100,000.
If we had had similar video evidence, a case in which I'm involved would have ended very differently indeed. I've been representing the owners of a ship who had to carry a full cargo of rice from Vietnam over to South America. Unfortunately, the officers of my ship took no evidence at all at any stage of the voyage. When the ship was loading, they took no videos or photographs of the cargo. They had no condition surveys of the holds, and they had no cargo survey. And when the cargo was taken out, it was wet, it was mouldy, it was stained. And the owners of my ship faced a claim for $2,023,000. And I had absolutely nothing with which to defend that claim. No evidence at all. If we had had samples of the rice when it was put on board, if we had had photographs or a survey report, we might have been able to show what I still think is true, that that rice was wet and mouldy before it was ever put on board. But we didn't have that evidence.
I had another incident too where, with a grain cargo, they were spraying it with a dye to make it not fit for human consumption but for animal use. And to my mind, they were spraying too much water, and there was big puddles of water in these on the cargo. I complained about it, but people just said, "Oh no, that's normal, Captain, that's normal." So I got the camera, took photographs of it, and just left it at that. When the ship got to the next port, we found the grain was growing with all the water in it, and they said, "Oh, this hatches leaks through the hatch combing and this." I said, "Oh no, here's the photographs of the water put on board by when they were dyeing it." So I can't really stress how important it is to have a camera and take photographs of any incident on board the ship. And if it's not needed, it's all right. You haven't wasted time or anything. It's there for future use. I can't stress it enough.
As far as the company is concerned, I would just like to echo what the captain has just told us. Evidence like that can save the company millions of dollars. It is so easy to present pictures. Pictures are worth 1,000 words. If we have evidence in photographs or video to back things up, it can stop claims in their tracks. We can settle immediately what would otherwise drag on for months or even years. It really is the key to the successful defense of a lot of damaged claims, injuries, accidents, you name it. It will help with them all. Many modern cameras can automatically log the time and date that the picture is taken. Video recordings can also be extremely helpful, particularly when showing cases of bad weather. By knowing the time and date it is shot, it can be matched to the contemporary logbook record. You can also explain what you are doing as you go along.
This is the site of the alleged accident. As everybody can see, there is no damage to any float, deck tiles, and everything appears to be in a good order.
When you go onto a ship to investigate a casualty, you never really know what you're going to find until you get there. We all, of course, in our minds have a list of deck log, engine log, bell books, course recorders, and standard documents which we look for. But the important thing is to talk to the crew and the officers and find out who else may have seen something or who else may have something. There was a memorable case. It was actually not a very big collision and didn't involve a huge amount of money, and I had quite a job persuading the P&I club manager involved to pay my airfare to go and interview the crew on that case. But actually, while I was with the captain, he, or the second mate I think it was, said, "Oh, I seem to remember that the third mate took a picture just after the collision." And so he was whisked up to the captain's cabin, and he then produced this photograph. And that photograph actually showed a pier, and it showed a mountain behind the pier on which we were able to draw a bearing line, and that fixed exactly where the ship was at the moment of collision. And that actually turned what might have been a paying case into a recovery case. So there's an example of just not knowing what you're going to find until you get there. So the moral is, if you're a ship's master, talk to your crew members, talk to all of them after the collision or the incident, whatever it is, and gather everything together.
The cost of insurance has increased dramatically for ship owners in the last few years. It is now the second most expensive part of running a ship. The main reason for this is the large increase in the value of claims paid. One thing is certain: everybody involved with a cargo will try to place the blame on the ship that carried it. This could well have been the case with a bulk carrier carrying wheat from the United States to India. This video, however, played a major part during arbitration, in which a claim in excess of $1.5 million was made when the cargo was found to be damaged by water. The owners sought to rely on the perils of sea defense. The arbitrators were impressed by the evidence provided in this 20-minute video, by the well-kept logbook, by corroborating evidence of the heavy weather from another vessel in the storm area at the same time, the reports of 3 independent surveyors who confirmed the good order and condition of the hatch covers, the master's evidence in which he told how a class surveyor watched hose testing of the hatch covers and then inspected the holds prior to sailing.
I've come across a very interesting case in Mediterranean where a vessel was discharging a cargo of bananas. Now, on completion discharge, we had the club correspondents sitting, the cargo receiver sitting, and the master in one room. Receivers were shouting on top of the voice that we want a letter of guarantee for an X amount, which was a very huge sum, saying that there was a shortage. The master said that I have given various letters of protest, and I'm sure that the stevedores had been walking down the gangway with bananas, and there was a lot of pilferage of cargo. Receiver says, oh, impossible, stevedores have been appointed by me, this just can't happen. Master goes in his office, pulls out the video camera and the tape which he had made during the discharge, plays it for the receivers on his television, and receivers are absolutely shocked. Now, they know for sure that if this evidence is given in court, their claim would never be accepted, and immediately we had the claim reduced to very reasonable levels, which was accepted by the association, P&I Association, and the ship owners.
Well, I always say a nice girl like you. Dinner tonight, perhaps?
Hey, look, they're stealing! Stop, thieves! Take a photograph now! Oh, there'll be no cargo left! Stop, thieves! Go and get your camera, quick!
Another source of insurance claims is stevedores' damage. Any evidence of damage caused to the ship by stevedores should be noted, and a damage form, similar to the one here, should be completed as soon as possible after the event, and if possible, the shift foreman should also sign this.
There are certain ports where the stevedores are not particularly careful. One case that I had recently was where the bulldozers were deliberately ramming against the ship's side to get the coal cargo, which was stuck between the frames, to get it down, and they thought that this was quite an acceptable means. Well, as soon as the damage as soon as the buckle in the frames, then we've got problems. One particular time, we went down, we photographed the ship side frames, all buckled. I think we were looking at about 12 buckled frames in one hold, and the surveyor just turned around and said, "Didn't happen in this port." So it really is important that we've got that photographic evidence. You've seen clean, fresh abrasions on the steel, and once we've got that, then we've got as much evidence as we can, and we've got strong evidence, photographic evidence. It's very important in terms of collecting evidence that we get it documented straight away, because the repairs might not be carried out until maybe 2 years later, and the vessel goes to dry dock the next time.
This coal-carrying ship had to use a canal to reach its berth, and during the passage had been involved in a grounding incident. I happened to be in port at the time, and together with the captain, we made sure we collected all possible evidence.
We've had a look in the tanks now. Everything seems fine. We've been right up into the forefoot. I've been there with the superintendent. The forepeak, no evidence of any damage whatsoever.
When you grounded, Captain, was the pilot surprised?
He was surprised. We'd been over the procedure for swinging, and he'd explained to me the size of the turning basin and the depth of water, so we should have had no problems. But fortunately, at the time there was a service boat out there which managed to do a sounding of the area and find that there was in fact less water than was supposed to be, and hence the fact that we'd touched bottom. Plus also we'd taken the draft at the time of grounding and compared it to the draft when we came alongside, and we knew for a fact that the vessel was light up there, so she definitely touched bottom.
So when we were speaking to the agent, Captain, he indicated that he could recover a tape recording of the conversation between the pilot and the tugmasters at the time of the incident. So we'll go ahead and do that. Could you make sure that you mention in your report all the detail you can about the survey boat, so that we can try and find out exactly why it was there, because that is all excellent contemporaneous evidence and will help greatly if this develops into a dispute.
So then we have everything recorded in the movement book there. All the times are very comprehensive. There's nothing missing. We have the drafts when the vessel was aground and when she was afloat, and I'll make copies and I'll forward them on together with a copy of the note of protest.
In many ports, steel waiting to be loaded is often rusty and wet. Pre-loading surveys should be carried out, and this is where video or photographic evidence can be very useful in proving that damage existed before loading.
Perhaps anywhere really.
Look over here now! Look! They've got an oil leak! It's their fault! They've got a faulty pipe! Take a photograph to show it's not our fault! Oh, take a photograph now!
Very well, I'm along. What a catch! Was this big?
I tell you, pal, in this day and age of cutthroat competition, you gotta be on the ball and thinking ahead. Because if you're not, and your owners get sued for mega dollars, well, they ain't gonna be too happy.
Bunkering is an operation where great care has to be taken. Pollution is such an emotive issue that any mistake could prove very expensive. Even a simple error in completing the oil record book can lead to a heavy fine.
Although the bunkering checklist is important to ensure that all the procedures are followed, the most important thing is that the oil record book and the logbook entries are done correctly, because these are the legal documents.
Also make sure your navigational charts are up to date, as a number of masters and owners know to their cost. Fines of up to £50,000 may be imposed on a ship with out-of-date charts or publications incorrectly updated. It could also lead to vital evidence being invalidated during arbitration of a dispute.
If you don't keep your charts up to date, that can cost your owners a lot of money indeed. There's a memorable case of a ship called the Marion, which anchored off Spurn Head, I think it was, and the master dropped his hook on top of a very expensive pipeline. The pipeline was marked on the up-to-date chart, but he was using an old chart, not because he didn't have the up-to-date chart, but because he just had this fixation about old charts. And what was wrong was that his second mate hadn't corrected the old chart to mark the pipeline on it. The House of Lords held that the owners couldn't limit their liability for that claim, so not only did the owners have to pay up, but there were questions raised about the owner's insurance coverage as well. So the message is, keep your charts corrected up to date, and if you've got two charts on board, correct both of them.
This chap's coming down pretty fine on the port bow. We'll have to keep an eye on him, second mate.
Yeah, I've got him on the black cap. Collisions can lead to some of the largest claims, involving millions of dollars.
Right, okay then.
So evidence is vital.
Is he altering to port?
Lawyers and surveyors will rely heavily on the master and crew to provide such evidence.
He's on a collision course then, isn't he?
If there has been a collision, it's essential to have good evidence and to have contemporary evidence. I have a very good example of this from a collision I was involved in only last year. The ship I was representing was well run. We had full and detailed statements from all the officers, and we had very complete records from the bridge and the engine departments. We had the navigational chart and the passage plan. We had the course indicator, the movement books, the gyro error checks. We had the deck and room logs and the manoeuvring books. But in that particular case, we had two special pieces of evidence. One of them was a radar plot from the shore radar station. And from this, we were able to retrace the exact movement of each ship and tie that movement into the evidence from either side. And we had something better than that. By the quick thinking of the officers involved, immediately after the collision, they called the ship that was 2 miles behind them. The officer there had seen everything, and they told him, write down what you've seen. And so we had this statement, which was taken from the officer of the ship just behind, showing what he'd seen and what he'd seen on radar. And this is independent and contemporary evidence of what happened. If we had not had such good evidence, the owners of my ship would have potentially been liable for $570,000 damage.
Marine accidents frequently happen far from land, and of course there are no policemen standing on the street corner or bystanders who can give evidence as to what happened. So we lawyers have to piece together the picture from the documents and the statements of the witnesses on the ship. An example of how important that can be was a case in which a ship made a radical turn, a rather improbable turn, before a collision. And I was able, because I had the course recording roll, which actually gave 100% certain evidence of the turn that the ship had made, to prove that in fact that ship had made that turn, and that actually saved the owners well over $1 million. Another story I could tell you, which is perhaps even more bizarre, was a collision in the Dover Straits. And when we got onto the ship, the captain, the first thing he did was to produce a cigar box. And I said, "What's that?" "Ah, Mr. Lawyer, those are the samples." "Samples," I said, "what are those?" He said, "When you've heard the story, you'll understand why I took samples." And the background is that the other ship was displaying misleading lights, lights which weren't actually any of the lights required by the international regulations. But fortunately, we managed to get surveyors to go on the ship, test the lights, and indeed they were wrong. So that's why the captain took the samples from his second mate, to show that he was actually sober at the time and not seeing things.
One of the things I regularly find in investigating accidents is the terrific buzz that officers get from being able to provide those who attend aboard the vessels to investigate these accidents with proper evidence.
If you think an incident has occurred, always try to keep a record. Mark it in the log, keep a note of it, fill out the accident report form. Take a photograph, see if the incident has been recorded on the video. The records you keep and any statements you take from witnesses should be made as soon as possible after the incident. It's a good idea to develop routines which mean that at any time it is a matter of habit that you keep good records.
Now, we've seen the reasons why it's important to collect evidence. Myself and a working group have come together and have produced a book to explain how to collect evidence, what evidence is required, and why that evidence is important. We've seen how a professional seafarer can be reduced to almost ridicule because his evidence was poor. This book will demonstrate how to collect that evidence in a thoroughly professional way. With that evidence, we can defeat the spurious claims. Without that evidence, we will be lost.